Hello and welcome back to the Thefanpubcast, episode 9. I've got Sean with me again.
Oh, it's good to be back, Al. Before you get started, let's just quickly think about this. Camps have started. You can smell the fantasy football round the corner, can't you? It's right on our doorstep.
I've
now.
noticed you've already started killing off people.
Sean
is the original Sean the Ripper. Very English serial killer.
Anybody goes in my fantasy team, they seek him here, they seek him there, but he leaves no fantasy player alive.
Well, let's just talk about the Dynasty League we're in. Could you just tell me your two quarterbacks?
Starting quarterbacks, yes, of course, absolutely. With pride, Luck and
Flacco.
Flacco.
Okay, well, let's get into the news.
That is the news. What are you talking about? That is the news. We should be focused on my Dynasty
Andrew
team.
Luck's week 1 status is in doubt.
No, it's fine. Look, Indianapolis Colts are not panicking. Why should anybody panic about that? Don't panic. This is good for you, actually, in fantasy, because Andrew Luck's bound to fall. The closer you get to the season, he's going to fall down the chance if you want a good quarterback.
That normally happens to people who have got no shoulder and haven't thrown the ball.
Don't panic.
I haven't got him.
They've taken due diligence, given him as much time as they need to. They're taking it very cleverly, I think. This is the right thing. He's your franchise player. He's the face of the Colts. He could be around for 10, 15 years. Got to look after him with his
Not with that
injury.
O-line, unless they...
I do agree. I think there are people that have some serious question marks, but it's not Andrew Luck, his bravery, his toughness or anything like that. I think if anybody deserves a little bit of time to rehab, surely a guy who's had that O-line deserves as long as he needs, I think.
And let's go to your second quarterback, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, he'll be fine.
And it was reported he was out for 3 to 6 weeks, but it's
not the case.
It's been since reported that that's not true.
No, it's not the case. It's a back tweak. Now, there is a repercussion. It's a serious one, actually. I know we jest about my quarterbacks. They could both be out week 1. It is possible. But I think the truth is Joe Flacco's back injury can linger. And it can linger, actually. And it's something we will have to monitor because...
Well, you imagine every time you take a hit with a bad back...
Yeah,
he missed a whole season through back? Or
a
lot of the season.
Potentially, these kind of injuries have a tendency to... When they say 3 to 6 weeks for his back injury, that's actually not untrue. If he re-aggravates it, then it could be a 3 to 6 week time deal. So this is more serious. But they're giving him a full week off. So let's just see what happens. The MRI was clear. I'm more concerned about that than if there was anything shown there, then yeah, we've got a problem on our hands. But at this moment in time, this is not a panic moment. But if you're drafting shortly, let's be honest, both these quarterbacks are
drafting shortly. What, Tavon Austin?
That's not that kind of short. We're not drafting on height. That's and we would never recommend it, particularly for wide receivers. But if you're gonna do anything in the next few weeks in terms of drafting, then Andrew Luck is a good quarterback who will drop down the board a bit. You've got an opportunity to become a top quarterback.
You're not worried at all?
Not in the slightest. I haven't been since the announcement that they're taking their time with him.
Do
you think the Colts are panicking?
Well, I just think I'm more worried the fact you own them, because last year you took on Moncrief, he went down. You then traded for Diggs, he went down.
Yeah.
You are like...
What are you trying to say?
You are the fantasy Jack the Ripper.
See, I think what you're missing out...
You're taking them all out.
People should trade with me more, if that's the case. That's what I expect to happen this season, more trading. So
Kenneth Dixon, do you want him?
No, I've never liked him, surprisingly.
Well, he's an expert. He's obviously out for the season, Kenneth
Yeah,
Dixon. The Ravens have had a tough time.
Oh, God, it's been torrid for them, actually. I mean, now, sometimes... This is one of the things. I mean, sometimes this happens. It's just... You'd have to... The question...
It happened with the Chargers last year, didn't it? Every week they lost somebody.
There's always... The thing for me is sometimes it's just bad luck, but there's also would be a question. If you were the coach, you would actually be asking about the conditioning of the players, about what's going on. Is there something we're doing that's changed from the previous year? Is there something that's happened that we've not asked our players to do in the off-season? Is there a reason why these players have dropped? Is it just bad luck? Quite possibly bad luck. Yeah. But it could be conditioning issues. It could be something they're doing. Who knows what kind of conditions they're practising under?
Well, Flacco was actually deadlifting, which is,
that's just bad luck.
Lifting weights rather than him being a serial killer and putting people in his food.
Deadlifting people. Yeah.
I mean, Dixon, he's done his medial meniscus, so
there was some fantasy value with Dixon before the news. Obviously, he had a chance to really break out when he comes back.
Not for the first 4 weeks.
Well, the worst bit is, of course, that four game suspension still stands when he returns.
Yeah, so even next year.
So no disrespect to him, but even next year, again, this is just. It's almost making him undraftable right now.
Yeah, it's really harsh, isn't it? That he's injured and because he's not on the active roster.
Yeah, well, it's the way
he has to miss 4 games next year.
That's the way it should be. And the worst bit is in Dynasty is again. For those that were listening earlier last year, the end of last year, I did mention Dixon, and I said to you, sell high. this has proved to be really valuable. So it's another big feather there. Very happy with that. And I like Dixon's talent, but unfortunately we're still not going to get to see it. And I'm not sure now. Time is running out on that window. Because you know what it's like, every year teams draft and every year that window gets smaller.
They've also had problems with, I think, Crockett Gilmore. He's obviously had a meniscus problem as well, so that's another person. He's going to miss the season likely.
Yeah.
They've been looking at a few tight ends, and they've actually signed Larry Donnell, the old Giants tight end.
I mean,
just to give them...
It's depth, really. It's a depth position. I mean, and to be honest with you, Larry Donnell, will he survive the 53-man cut? This could be just a training camp.
Well, I guess, Max Williams is struggling to recover from a knee injury as well, apparently.
I don't like the look of it.
Benjamin Watson missed all last year.
Yeah, he's not looking too good. And this is the guy that's meant to be protecting the guy who just hurt his back. It doesn't bode well, does it? This is not looking good for Flacco. I just think he better come back fully healthy before he gets... keep the red shirt on, I say, and no more deadlifting throughout the off-season, do other things.
Okay, another person that's ended up on the PUP, Jordan Reed. He's an old favourite. He loves being on there, doesn't he?
It's frustrating. I mean, I've had lots of conversations, and it's worth. This is one of the great things about our Discord site. A lot of good conversations there. A lot of conversations outside that site with people who talk about tight ends. I think it's worth mentioning it here. They're all. I know we say it all the time on this show, but they are ten a penny for me. There's only one that's great. That's Gronk if he's healthy. Big question mark. We'll cover that off in a future video. I keep saying that, but we've got a video coming out in early August. We'll talk about him in detail. But the truth is, everybody else, even Kelsey, I think I got it right this time. I got it right.
Bring the fanfare up.
I think, and even him, he was only 138 last year. So all these tight ends, you can wait on them, and that's all I would advise people to do. Why would you want to give up an early pick for a Reed or somebody like that? What's the point? Seriously, in fantasy,
I suppose the thing that might be good about it is that Reed might actually drop down the board a bit now with the injuries. Olsen's possibly holding out, and Camp, I can't remember if he did or not.
Yeah, he seems to be, but I think they'll get that deal done because he's too valuable to their offense and too valuable for protecting Cam Newton. And let's be honest, Cam Newton also got sacked quite a lot last year as well. There's a lot here to talk about, isn't there? So yeah, tight ends, 10 a penny. Don't worry, if they fall, they fall. If they fall to a good value, fair enough if you want to pull the trigger. But I always think weigh up the talent around them. You're only looking at what last year's winner was 138. There's a lot of wide receivers that can give you that range of points, and you can get them much later in the draft. So what are you worried about a tight end early for?
Reed might be back anyway before. He's only out like a week or two at the maximum. So.
Yeah, it won't be a big injury, but it's still worrying because this is the trend of his career, isn't it? One knock after another.
There's a couple of old favourite running backs back in the picture. So,
yeah.
Dallas have signed Ronnie Hillman.
Yeah. God.
And Denver have signed Stephen Ridley because Devontae Booker got injured, obviously, last week.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on any of them being relevant this year?
Obviously, cover position for camp for Ronnie Hillman, really for Dallas. The reality is that Ezekiel Elliott, we're just waiting now to hear what the suspension will be. There will be one. I think we nailed it. It's 1 or 2 games, more likely 1. He'll be a camp battling player, Ronnie Hillman. There's a chance he can make the cut, but I think it's very limited. Players like him understand the game. You're in Dallas, they've already got a number 1. The number 2 job does have some value there if anything happens to Zeke, but he's not going to win that battle. Darren McFadden will hold that job. I think he's too seasoned a pro not to keep the job.
Yeah, Alfred Morris is definitely looking like he's going to be a cut. He's actually supposed to be behind Rod Smith in the pecking order.
Doesn't really.
When you're behind Rod Smith,
that says a lot.
And you do a big bonus for making the roster.
You're not going to make the roster.
Days are numbered. Right. Okay. So, actually, a lot of people have been talking about the Ravens, having these problems, but Pittsburgh Steelers, their problems are mounting up, and some of these have gone a bit under the radar. Juju Smith-Schuster, the rookie, he left last week with injury. Sammy Coates has also been injured.
Yeah.
James Conner actually left practice last night with a shoulder injury.
Yeah, that's the one that worries me the most.
And Martavis Bryant isn't cleared to actually go to camp or play games. So
you've got to understand the process. So let's start with Martavis Bryant because that's the one that's probably got the biggest impact news for fantasy. Should you be worried about it? No, because look, he's been cleared to go back and be around the team. So the truth is, this is all part of the process. They will make it official in probably the next 2 weeks.
But obviously every week counts. I mean, he's missed a year, so he's going to be rusty.
He will be rusty, but again, he has been doing a lot of work on his own outside. I've heard very, very decent reports on the effort he's put in, and obviously the team have seen that. There are still issues.
All reports look
character.
positive, about the positive they can be.
Yeah, but there is character. We know there are character flaws, but from a fantasy perspective, he will be cleared by mid-August, because if the NFL weren't going to clear him, they wouldn't be letting him back near the camp at all. That would be the reality of this situation. Wouldn't be allowed back anywhere near it. So that would be the truth. So he will be cleared. As for Juju Schuster, minor. I think he'll be okay. He'll be back pretty quickly. James Connors is the one that really worries me a lot from a rookie perspective, because it's a shoulder injury to a running back. It's his key carrying arm as well, just so people know. And that has huge repercussions, but we've got no data, nothing
to know how bad it is.
We don't know how bad this is. So at the moment, I'm going to assume minor until proved otherwise. But minor can be lingering. So
Toussaint could be...
Toussaint,
well, Bell's actually holding out camp, so you think Toussaint snaps now?
Is going to get the first team reps. He'll have to while we wait, which is unbelievable. There is Niall Davis in the background, but I think that's a non-factor in this situation. Again, he's very...
Well, he's going to get some snaps, isn't he?
Some snaps, but it's more than likely, unless, of course, there's a big problem with, James Conner. But they will keep the rookie. I mean, there's no reason to cut him. They want to develop him along. But as we get close, they're going to have to make some very, very tough decisions, all these teams. They've quickly got to bring them down from 90 to 53 this year. That's the biggest change in the NFL off-season programme. There is no middle ground anymore. It's 90 down to 53 at a cutting point. That's serious. So you imagine that day when whatever that will be, a Black Monday or something, when they start releasing players. Be some cull in the NFL then.
Yeah, and there's always a few surprising ones.
Always.
Okay. Corey Coleman expressed confidence that the police will clear him in an assault investigation.
I think.
What do you make of that?
I think he probably does have a reasonably strong case by looking in between the lines on the case that he has. His solicitor is a very good solicitor, so I've had a little detailed background check on what's going on with him. He's obviously they can afford the best. There isn't much evidence that points towards him having a major problem hanging over him, so yes, he's likely to be cleared of it. But there's always the but with this. They'll leave that case open because they'll always be seeing if any other witnesses come forward.
It's like the Zeke rule, isn't it?
So
after
yes,
Ray Rice, you can't afford to be...
I guess he'll be fine, but we'll have to monitor it as we get closer and closer to the season, and hopefully it will just blow over that it was just one of those situations. But it does worry you about kind of people and kind of things you get up to in the off-season, always worrying with some
So that points to potentially, I mean, we don't know, it's only alleged assault, but that points to a personality injury or an issue there, isn't it? With
always the problem. Yeah,
with the character issue.
Characters. This is the thing.
And he's also got injury issues as well.
Yeah, the thing I always say to people is when you're talking about fantasy football, it's not too bad in redraft. If Corey Coleman starts, you can evaluate how you feel about his opportunity. Okay, it's with Cleveland, but Cleveland going to be chasing games. What value do you put on him? I do agree with you, though. The injuries are the thing that really give me the first major red flag. But the other part to all of this is, forget for 1 minute, just forget those bits and think of it from a dynasty perspective. Do you want a player with serious character flaws, and how long will you hold on to them for? Because he has got some, not only injury issues, but flaws. So I always think if the guy comes in and has a good year, sell high. Don't look back.
Yeah.
Sell high, trade on them. And I mean that with every respect, because you're better off without the problem. So just a thought. Unless you're in a win-now phase.
Okay. The last bit of news we've got is Jonathan Stewart talking about McCaffrey. Said there's no one in the league that can cover him one-on-one and thinks he's a special player, catching the ball out of the backfield.
This is the NFL. Nobody is immune to being caught. And also, let's remember something important here, that as much as everybody assumes certain things are going to be the case for McCaffrey, because he has got great speed, there's no doubt about that, you have to get in space to be able to use it. And there will be people will coordinate accordingly. They will have a plan.
But it's whether they can stop him once they've got that plan, I suppose.
It is. But it depends on the kind of what you want to do. There are many ways to stop a speed player. One of the biggest ways to stop anybody, actually, to be perfectly honest with you, is when you're talking about a player like him, is have a spy. And equally, you just make sure that when you're, the run, if their run game is minorly effective, got to keep using it then, haven't they? That means less chances of passing the ball. So you just have to... It's all about what the coordinators want to try and get the other team to start doing, which could put them out of using McCaffrey. I suspect he'll have a good year. We've already talked about this, from a PPR perspective. We're looking at about 50-60 catches, I think is realistic for McCaffrey. That's pretty good PPR value, but it's not... I'm a bit concerned about the running back numbers. I'm more curious about how they're going to use him in the running game. That's what worries me.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, Stewart was quite, clever in the words he used. He used, receiving the ball out of the backfield as if to say, leave the running to me. But he will get runs, obviously. But
if he could get 7 to 10 carries a game and 5 to 7 targets a game receiving, and he's RB2 potentially. If he can make those carries and catches count, then he's an RB2 potentially. However, that's quite a lot of risk for early drafting. So you have to monitor that and decide what you think is best. You know how we feel about these early round picks. We have to be very careful. We don't really.
You have to be very solid, don't you?
You have to be sure on what you're doing. And I mean, it's one thing to shoot for the moon, but we all know what often.
We'll do that later on. Take your upside players later.
I've got other players I'd take deeper to take the shots on.
Okay, let's move on to ADP Risers and Fallers.
Yep.
The biggest riser actually this week, he's up to 135 now, is an old favourite of yours, Ted Ginn. Wide receiver 53 coming off the board.
It's still palatable down there, 135. That's still late in a lot of drafts. That to me, that's still okay.
Are you a buyer at that level?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I mean it's look.
He's going around the people that are in that area with him: Marvin Jones, Brishard Perryman, Sterling Shepard.
I'm happy to take. I mean, I like.
Would you take Ginn ahead of all of them?
Not all of them. I think most of them.
Josh Doxson, would you take him ahead of him?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
You take him ahead of Marvin Jones?
No, I think Marvin Jones probably deserves. At that level, it's probably a good value pick, isn't it? He's a wide receiver 2 at least, and you never know. He started last year off hot and then faded, but at that level of pick, you don't mind taking a shot at him. Detroit are going to be chasing a lot of games this year.
You take him with Brishard Perryman?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, 100%. Yeah,
Sterling Shepard?
Yeah, because I think Sterling Shepard's unfortunately he's going to be sandwiched out with OBJ and Brandon Marshall taking most of the work. So he'll probably lose half his attempts this year, Sterling Shepard. So that's going to be a big knock-off effect.
I mean,
Ginn could get big play. Potential.
I mean, Breeze has been quite kind about him, hasn't he? So.
Yeah. I mean, don't forget. I mean, Breeze. One thing Breeze has never lost, which is one of the rarities in this game, is every time you see Breeze, he can throw the deep ball. He's never lost that. I mean, that seems to me it's amazing, really, how he can still air that thing down there. I mean, look at it. How many years in a row now? 4,500 or more yards.
Yeah, he's very consistent.
And
he had a horrible schedule. They had the worst schedule.
Terrible schedule last year. And look what they produce. And I think Ginn's going to benefit from obviously working with him. And I mean, Ginn, yes, is probably a great one for best ball league or he's a brilliant one where he's going to have some big plays.
Another Kenny Stills type player.
But I don't mind that at that level of pick. I mean, come on. I mean, if he's in a flex play, you don't mind that some weeks. That's got to be an advantage, surely. So
you just hope you hit the jackpot with him.
Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, but you don't mind that. I mean, Ginn, we know Ginn can get 9 or 10 touchdowns. It's possible. Sprinkle in some decent yards and it's not bad.
Next biggest riser, up 31 to 115, Mike Wallace. He's now wide receiver 46.
I'm a big fan of Mike Wallace. I mean, look at the injuries.
He's actually wide receiver 45. He's got above Coleman now.
Well, let's be honest. Let's just assess this very quickly and use these 2 key words: Baltimore Ravens. I mean, all those injuries. Somebody's going to benefit, so it's got to be.
You think with the Flacco injury, he might suffer a bit?
No, I think
people just realising he's a value.
Look, Flacco, it's not the Flacco news that will, because that should effectively work in reverse. The wide receiver should drop down, but what people have realised, the Flacco's news so far is minor. But the beneficiaries of the team will keep climbing because every time a player goes down, the balls have got to go somewhere. I think Mike Wallace is really, really steady pro who's going to give you solid fantasy numbers. We're not talking massive high glass ceilings, but at that point of drafting, perfectly solid.
Could be a value.
Perfect value, perfectly solid.
Well, he's going around, like I say, he's just gone above Corey Coleman and he's just below Randall Cobb.
I like him over both those. I like Mike Wallace this year a lot. I sneakily picked him on my dynasty team, so that probably means he's going to get injured next.
And the guy just... yeah. Sean the Ripper will be taking him out.
Support, Mike. Sorry, Mike, if you're out there. Do apologise. The big scythe is coming for you.
And another player we've talked about and we've loved all off season. He's climbing the board. Terrell Williams.
Yeah,
we give him a lot of love. He's actually up 28. He's in the top 100 now. 97. He was down.
Yeah, the value is climbing so high that
wide receiver 41.
Very soon there won't be any value left. There's still value, but it's almost at the point where there are so many players around his picking point.
Well, the people around him are John Brown. He's injured again.
I'm not touching John
Kenny
Brown.
Britt.
Kenny Britt has some value, yeah, but I still prefer.
And then you're down to Randall Cobb again.
I'm not touching him. So actually, still at that point, he's still the best.
You can't see any sort of way back for Randall Cobb at all?
No, I can't. I don't see what everybody's... I've seen some fantasy experts out there talking about, Cobb and, it's a high-octane offence. He's had every opportunity. There was a year when Nelson was out. He was rubbish. Last year, Devontae Adams came on. Cobb faded. He had the odd game here and there. But it's still, the stats don't lie. How many games do you want evidence on Cobb not really being effective? I'm sure Green Bay...
he is a bit more of a value where you could take a chance on him now.
You can take a chance, but look at the players around him.
He's going below Kenny Britt.
There are players I prefer above. I let other people take Cobb. Let them have him. I would rather go somewhere else.
You'd rather have corn on the cob, would you?
I would. I don't even like corn on the cob.
But you'd still rather have it.
But I'd still rather have corn on the cob than that.
Okay, and the next biggest one, and this isn't really surprising. Terrence West up 25. With all the injuries,
Ravens.
Is the only one still left alive?
Well, yeah. I mean, it looks like look, if you had to evaluate Terrence West from a coaching perspective, you would say he's a plodder. Yeah, and that's the reality. You'd put him down as a...
Needs a good honest throw,
exactly like that. You'd say he's a decent pro, nothing special.
He's now he's now running back 35,
and actually
just below Jonathan Stewart and just above.
I mean, the way it's going for him this year, he should get pretty much nearly all the work. I mean, that's how good it's looking for him now. Really.
I guess. I mean, who else is it? You got
Danny Woodhead.
He'll take a lot of catches.
And
you've got Buck Allen, haven't you?
Let's look at it logically. You've got Danny Woodhead, who does tend to get banged up. So let's assume that Danny Woodhead doesn't play the whole year. It falls to Terrence West again. I mean, West could end up...
Well, Danny Woodhead's not a runner anyway.
No.
He's a passer.
It could fall to Terrence West by default to have this amazing running back year. So I think his value is fantastic value. I don't have a problem still with
He's certainly no risk either.
There's no risk there. I mean, if you need a running back, you're in one of those situations where you're looking for a player.
Would you pick him above Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I would, because the problem Derrick Henry has is...
opportunity, really.
Yeah, it's really all about this. I mean, look, if you've got DeMarco Murray and it's a redraft league... There's no point having Derrick Henry even at night. You're going to need another player for your team. Look, what are you doing if you've got... This is a great point to talk about handcuffs. What's the point of that handcuff unless you think... And this is the issue.
He is a good player, that's the thing.
I think I guarantee myself number one numbers, no matter who of those two are playing. Get that, but you've had to use a bench spot to achieve it. And the problem in redraft, you're okay if it's a small league, right? So if you're in a tiny league, 10 or 12 team league... Sure, you can do that if the bench spots allow. But if you're in a large league, you can't afford to have both. The only time it makes sense to own them is Dynasty, because then, of course, you're backing yourself for the now and the future, and it makes perfect sense. That's my issue with him. I would rather, personally, if you're going to take him, you take him because you don't have DeMarco Murray and you're banking on an injury to DeMarco Murray. There is some flex play. I've said this before. I think there is some flex play from Derrick Henry this year. I think you will see some value. He was some standalone value, but it is going to be game by game, and it depends on how the flows of the games go. So, I have one or the other. I don't own both, not in redraft, and if I'm being honest, I'd rather get DeMarco Murray round one and rely on the veteran to keep doing what he did last year, because he's in his final year of his contract.
Yeah, and
they are going to have to... Look, they're paying him an absolute fortune. You're telling me they're not going to bother giving him the ball? They're paying him, to ride the pine with no injury? I don't think so. He's going to go out and play all year unless something happens. And even if he does get 250 carries, that's a great year, and that's his final year, well done. Derrick Henry comes in next year and takes the job.
Well, it'll be a lot higher then.
There'll be a lot more value there. So okay. I'm not going to worry about it. In redraft, it's one or the other, not both.
Okay.
Now watch me pick both.
Okay, one or the other. So, that's nailed on. The way you take down Burrs, you need to take both of them.
I probably need to take all of the backup and the running back.
And the last player sneaking onto the list.
Yes.
Gio Bernard.
Yeah.
He's not going to miss any time now, by the sound of it. He's there for camp.
Great recovery, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he's way ahead of time. He's 141 now, RB 50.
This has been put down to two key factors for me. The first one is the fact that the surgery obviously performed by the best in the business. Second thing is recovery and rehab. He listened to every piece of advice and followed exactly what they wanted, and of course it showed that he was prepared to go more. You know, he's not one of these players, do this 10 times, that's enough. No, I'll do it another 5. Let me keep going. In rehab, he was absolutely a beast, apparently, in rehab to get back.
And he's looking good, apparently. He's making cuts.
And I'm pleased for him because he is one of my favourite players. I just like him.
Does that muddy the mix and waters for you?
It's exactly like I said in my recent article. If you've not seen it, it's worth a read about the mixing it up. On the Thefanpub.com, there's an article out there. I do believe in Mixon, but I also quite cleverly make sure that people are aware that as much as I believe in him, you have to remember that the primary duty of a 3-down back is the ability to block. And Mixon's track record on that is sketchy at best. So if he can prove to Andy Dalton and the coaches over these next few weeks he can do that, he will take the job from Jeremy Hill really rapidly. If he doesn't, there's a reason why Jeremy Hill's hung around a long time, and that will be a running back by committee.
He's a touchdown monster.
Well, yeah, he has. You're right. He actually is tied for first with the most amount of touchdowns through 3 years, Jeremy Hill.
Exactly.
So that's
right off at your peril.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not as good as... We're not saying he's as good as Mixon, but,
no,
he might still... And you're going to be frustrated when he steals your goal line carries.
You have to temper... You have to nail things right. This is an interesting problem. The Mixon one is going to be a problem. Now, if you're drafting, which we are next week, we're drafting Saturday, somebody is going to have to, in our league, because we're a 16-man league, is going to have to come in round 3, probably. Who knows, somebody might go early, because we've got that kind of league where people will take some shots. But we'll have to logically come in round 3. That's where he's going. Somebody will want it. I'm sure he'll go in round 3. That's the risk you take. If that person gets it right, that is going to reward them massively as you move into the season, and fair credit for getting it correct. No, as I say, you're a braver man than me, because every time I've tried things, it hasn't quite worked out. But
I mean, Gio Bernard's going below people like Darren Sproles,
he's great
Jamal
value.
Charles.
For me, Giovanni Bernard is great value because, again, if you've got a half-point PPR or a PPR league, this is a guy who consistently delivers a good number of catches.
Sneaky good.
And he also does get, a few carries every game. Not a lot, but always a sort of 3 to 7 range every single game. Perfectly serviceable numbers for an low-round RB2.
And he's another one in space. He can be electric.
He's fantastic. I really like him. I hope the injury bug is gone, and I want him to do well.
And they would say he's the most electric bank.
Such a good team player. All reports of him about being a team player. He's one of the best team players. He was supportive, helpful, developing other players. Good guy with off-field stuff, looking after other people who are less able than him. Going back to his high school, putting money into it.
Yeah, that's what you like to see, isn't it?
Got a lot of time for him. A lot of time. So he's always been one of my favourite players to watch.
Okay. Well, this is the flip side of the coin, the fallers.
Yep. More intriguing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest faller, down to 49, is McCaffrey.
Yeah.
RB21.
Well, this is fascinating, isn't it? Everybody that we've talked about, I think this has been great for the podcast.
RB18, sorry.
We've pretty much... We've been ahead of the curve this year, massively. I thought we were really good last year, but I think we've been really ahead of the curve with fallers, risers and players that will move up and down the charts. I mean, as you said, if we'd have got in some best ball leagues before now, we'd have been laughing.
Yeah, because all our
players have risen through the roof, actually.
Yeah.
And McCaffrey rightly has gone down. And the reason he's gone down is I think people have realised the truth. Fantasy enthusiasts have now seen the light a little bit. Not saying that there isn't potential for a big year from McCaffrey, but I think you have to realise it's a rookie. Year 2 will be more interesting, as we've already said on this podcast. This year, people have tempered that enthusiasm, realising that Jonathan Stewart is still there. Jonathan Stewart will still get a lot of first and second down work. He's going to take a lot of goal line touches.
When we talk about these rankings, we're talking about standards. So in PPR, he probably would have more value, wouldn't he? Because that's what he's going to be doing.
Yeah. In PPR, sure, there's a nice high upside there to McCaffrey, particularly if he explodes.
But then he's going to be going high enough anyway.
But he's going to be going very high.
All these reports are only going to, raise him higher.
I mean, his ADP at the moment is what's it standing at? Sorry, for McCaffrey now.
Well, he's the 18th off the board. He's 49.
49. So he's now fallen in, even in the large leagues, 16-man leagues. He's in round 4, and that's okay, but still very high. So in other leagues, that's sort of round 6, 7. That's a little bit more palatable down there. You could live with it. That's much more palatable. You don't mind that as your third or fourth running back off the board. So this is the drawback and the risks in depending on league size. So interesting. Yeah, I'm pleased about that.
And the next player we've already talked about, Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Down 14, but we talked about him really. LeGarrette Blount is the next guy. He's down 12 to 70, RB29.
I don't think people believe in LeGarrette Blount. I think they saw that they're sort of thinking that
he's just below Paul Perkins, just ahead of Adrian Peterson.
I think what people are thinking is that in the Philadelphia Eagles offense is not as good as New England. Well, that's fairly obvious. We all know that.
I think everyone agrees with that.
But will there be opportunities for LeGarrette Blount? Yes, there will be. LeGarrette Blount's a steady professional. He's another one of these Terrence West kind of guys. There is the moments where he can run people over. There are moments when he doesn't run people over and you think, I don't understand why the big man can't run ball there. Why doesn't he get a few extra yards? He's a steady professional. It's Philadelphia are improving, I think. I think that's good value. For me, at 70, I like it. If I'm being honest, you've got Paul Perkins. Who else is around him running back-wise at that number?
Paul Perkins is above.
Yep.
Amir Abdullah is above Paul Perkins.
Yep.
And then there's Adrian Peterson and Danny Woodhead just below LeGarrette Blount.
Well, I like Adrian Peterson's value down there, so obviously I'm going to put him as, that's the player I would...
Would you pick him ahead of LeGarrette Blount?
What, Adrian Peterson? Yeah, I would, yeah. I can't not knock... I said this before on the podcast. Where Adrian Peterson is concerned, I don't doubt him. If he's still on the ball, I have to take him.
I read yesterday Adrian Peterson hasn't dropped a catch in camp yet.
I've also heard...
He's not really known for his...
No, I said to you, when you're working with Drew Brees, the last time he had a decent quarterback was Brett Favre. When he had Brett Favre and he was working for him, he had nearly 40 catches and nearly 500 yards of receiving. This is the similar situations. Now, we factor that in, put in the running game as well.
And he's probably the best running back of our recent times.
What's not to like? How can I doubt Adrian Peterson? He's not injured this year. Yes, he's had injuries, but every time you doubt him, he comes back and does something you never expected. So I cannot doubt him. He's a great offense. We've said this in the podcast. So for me, I can't.
But Kamara's actually getting some love as well.
Yeah, he gets some love. He's a bit like Marshall Faulk. Yeah,
that's what they're liking him to.
That's lovely. But you won't be really doing much this year with him, will you? As much as you say he's like Marshall Faulk, we'll see.
I don't say that.
Not you, but them.
They're saying it.
Them. You won't say that about him,
No.
But I think this really, going back to LeGarrette Blount, other than Peterson, all the other ones you've mentioned, I'd take LeGarrette Blount over them all day long, even over Perkins. I would take LeGarrette Blount because in Standard League, particularly Standard, you talk touchdowns are king.
Would you take him above Bilal Powell?
Yeah.
Amir
I don't
Abdullah?
like Jets. Yeah, I don't trust Amir Abdullah. Sorry, I'll take the steady professional. Yeah, for those that are listening in, you'll understand this year is all about safety first in large leagues. You've got to do it.
You actually got off of the Amir Express.
I have to. It's just not good enough. I mean, the talent's there. It's unquestionable. I mean, look, we can all see the flashes of brilliance.
It's questionable. We haven't, you've seen flashes, but
there's been flashes of brilliance from him.
Surely brilliance has to be consistent.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, a flash.
And that's what he hasn't delivered.
That's the problem. It's all very well and good being like 100 distance meter runner who can break the world record 1 week and then never do it for next 2 years. No use. People want to see you consistently delivering those great times.
It's the same with Kevin White.
This guy, I worry massively whether he can handle the load. They've scheduled him in, Amir Abdullah, for 200 plus carries. I don't know if he can carry the load, and that's the concern. Can I risk?
And really, it's likely going to be the pass catcher.
If he was my first or second running back off the ball, because I've gone my drafts ended up going 0 RB, not by default, but just because that's the way it's gone. Can I risk taking Amir Abdullah? I can't, can I? I just can't. I'd rather take LeGarrette Blount. All right, it's a plodder, but at least I'm going to get regular work.
He's going to get goal line carries.
That's all you want. So it all comes down to those kind of decision making. So that's how I valued it.
Okay. The next
Clearly,
man
other people are following us now.
The next man falling, Jamal Charles. Who would have thought it?
Yeah, it's a
and
shame.
that's with Booker's injury. He's still falling. We only talk about people in the top 150. He's fallen to 130, and is there any? I mean, he's running back 48. He's going above Jamal Williams, below Thomas Rawls.
I just see nothing left in the tank for Jamal Charles. I think, as I said to you before on this podcast now, I think the only person who doesn't realise it's over is Jamal Charles.
So do you think the people that will give him a chance are people that, he's been good for people in the past, hasn't
Look,
he?
there are fantasy enthusiasts who've won championships on the back of Jamal Charles, and they will still have a soft spot. They will have a soft spot for him, and right, I can understand that. But for me, there are other players around at ADP I would take a million times over Jamal Charles. He is on my do not draft list.
Well, let's just say, let's look at the rose tinted one.
Yeah,
class player.
Yes,
been there, done it.
Yep. No doubt.
Booker's gone down.
Yep, no doubt about that.
CJ Anderson missed a lot of last year.
It's true, yeah.
The only other guy is probably D'Angelo Henderson, who's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's got a few reps, apparently, but,
There's not a lot to fight off, I agree, but he won't do it.
And, of course, we've got Stephen Ridley, who we talking about.
There's not a lot to fight off. I mean, look, the funny thing is...
We're talking about older has-beens.
The irony is, I'll tell you what the irony is, I'm so glad you brought this subject up, because CJ Anderson's going to be there next Saturday when you're drafting. You'll have to take him.
He might be there, but he won't be picked by me. I like him. No, I do. No, that's
you
not
will
true.
have to take him.
I will take him if he's there.
At that value.
If he goes where he went last year, I'll be...
could you refuse taking him? He will be the only running back on there. It's Denver's D, everything else,
Yeah, I think I took him in the 4th round in a 16-round league last year.
You did, yeah. And he paid dividends the first few weeks. And then died
until he died, yeah.
Then, but I see...
I wouldn't pick him at running back 21.
No, well, that's where he's going, though, isn't it?
Talking of CJ Anderson, we'll be talking about him in a bit in the next sort of section.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, the last person on the Fallers list, Marshawn Lynch, he's now fallen down to 35.
Much more palatable price, isn't it? That's much more like that's really good.
So he's RB 15 off the board. He's in the sort of area of Crowell, Hyde, Mixon.
Yeah, you can kind of see that seems to be about the right place for him. The talent still there.
So who would you go for? With Lynch, Hyde and Mixon, who would you pick?
If we were talking about a 16-man draft...
All three have dropped here.
If we're talking about a 16-man draft, none of them.
No, but you've got to pick one. That's the rule.
Oh, what a shame. None of them. I wouldn't touch any of them, actually, at that point in the draft, if I had to.
You're desperate for a running back. There's Marshawn Lynch, Carlos Hyde, Mixon, and there's McCaffrey. Mark Ingram.
I'm going to take Hyde.
Yeah?
Yeah, even there are risks involved in taking Hyde now.
Especially with the way you take players down. He's doomed.
I'd have to take Hyde, but none of them I want at that point in the draft. So there you go. So that's how I'm thinking about them.
Anyone drafting with Sean next Saturday, let's leave them all for him.
There are other players out there that I much prefer over them, to be perfectly honest with you. So I'm happy to let other people
Where would Lynch have to fall to for you to be interested?
After round 5, never going to happen in a large league. Never going to happen. So that would be the only time I'd ever go anywhere near him, because the value's there. Then it's worth.
They're down in like 80 or
then the risk is worth it, and that's never going to happen. So
it's not
between now and Saturday. So
not unless something bad happens.
Somebody else will see the value. We see this all the time, and rightly, I think one of our dear friends highlighted it brilliantly when he said it's a gambler's pick.
Well, Dean, Dean
took a gambler's
him
pick, and it is a really interesting gambler's pick. My only concern with it is it depends on the league format you choose him in. I mean, in Dean's case, I think he took him in the right kind of format. If you're talking about redraft, look, you have to remember, and it's really important this, because what we want the show to stand out for is the right reasons. Look, there's no questioning how great Marshawn Lynch was, like Jamal Charles, no questioning.
Yeah, same sort of thing.
Love the attitude. I love the drive. I like the enthusiasm he brings to the field. He's the kind of player if he has a good run, it's infectious. Great. The trouble is, what I saw before the injuries told me the steps had gone. He's had all this time away from the game. I've seen him in practice. He looks great. We all look good in practice. Even I looked all right in practice.
He apparently, broke off a few big runs.
Yeah, it's lovely, but it's practice.
Camp.
It's training camp. They're not going to.
They're not allowed to touch him.
They're not going to touch him. So you can break off any you want. You can throw the deep balls as much as you like at him. All that stuff. Look, you haven't played the game yet. Let's see how his body holds up after 3 or 4 games. I'm not doubting there will be some good games in there. I'm not even doubting he could get some really good red zone shots.
Let me tell you why I think
here's my problem with him, right? So here's my big issue, Al, before you tell me what you think. Here's my issue, because he's going in the 3rd round in a large league, 4th round in some leagues, okay? Now, if we take the large league, because that's the formula we're kind of putting out, they're the big money leagues for us, I want him in the 3rd round to get me 160 fantasy points. That's a lot. Okay, you have to work. If you start working out yards and touchdowns, it's a lot. I mean, even if Marshawn Lynch has 1,000 yards, he has to then get 10 touchdowns.
Well, I think he will. If he gets 1,000 yards, he'll get 10.
Then he's worth 160, just. Okay, now he might get a sprinkling of some catches, and that might be worth another 150, 200 yards, so suddenly it's a bit better. But the reality is that everything has to kind of align correctly for Marshawn Lynch for this to work out. I'm not doubting that they have a great line. You can't doubt it. It's the proof is in the pudding, as they say. There's a lot to like about the Raiders, but they're not a run-first team. They're a pass-happy team, and that's the way they're building their squad. The running game is kind of a way to, like New England do, it's a way to kill the game off. It's a way to dictate some of the pace. It's a way to take some of the time away. I understand, but I just don't think we can pen him in for more than 200 carries. Now it gets interesting, because if you start saying 200 carries is about the top level ceiling for him, then the question is, even if he gets a 4-yard average, it's only 800 yards. Now sprinkle 10 touchdowns in. So now even if he gets the 10 touchdowns, now we're looking at about 140. Now he's not got you the points you want in the round you've gained him. Now you've lost 20 points. It could be worse than that. It could even be that he only gets 120. Good that it might be. Fantasy-wise, it's rather.
All right, well, let me make the case for him.
I
think Marshawn Lynch is somebody who wouldn't come back if he didn't think he could do it. He retired when he thought, he wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
He's not somebody who's in it for the money.
No, agreed. Yeah.
He's got, like you said, he's got a better O-line. Unlike Charles, when they get to the goal line, and this is what Raiders did a lot. Remember how many touchdowns Latavius Murray had?
Oh, yeah.
They run it in the red zone a lot. And there's no one better than running in the red zone than Marshawn Lynch, throughout his career. So I think, all those things combined, you could be looking at 12 to 15 touchdowns and 1,000 yards, and then if he stays healthy, obviously.
Okay. Well, let's go with your scenario then. So I totally look at that's the high upside. Do you see it going that way? Is that how you do?
I could do. So I could see it going the other way as well. Like you say, it's a gambler's pick.
So here's the problem I have with that. Then why is he falling? So why is he falling in the ADP charts? Why do you think he's going down?
Because you've got to factor in that risk.
There's a big risk. This is one of those Mixon kind of picks.
I'd take him over Mixon every day of the week.
Marshawn Lynch is polarising for the same reasons that Mixon will be.
Yeah.
And I do agree. I mean, if you had to weigh both up, you'd probably take Marshawn Lynch over Mixon.
I would, yeah.
It's kind of, depending on how the camp battles go, because we don't know that. By the time we pick next Saturday, we still won't know.
Well, Mixon's in a crowded backfield with Bernard and, Hill. Yeah. Like or not.
I like this battle. This is a good one.
Yeah, exactly. This is what, you're debating. Marshawn Lynch is the undisputed number one. Mixon is not.
Yeah.
Obviously you got DeAndre Washington and Jalen Richard and the rookie. I'm
not faulting the attitude of Marshawn Lynch. I'm not faulting the line. What I'm going to tell you now is, look, I want more points.
But it's actually his spirit as well. The way he smashes people out of the way.
Well, and there is some question marks. So let's see how it pans out for him as the season starts. By then it will be too late. So for me, I wouldn't advise.
Would you take Mixon over Lynch?
Listen, if you've got a small league, right? If you've got a small league, you can take whichever one you prefer. Me, if it's a small league, I'll take the rookie because he's going to be my fifth pick if it's a small league. If it's a large league, I'm not taking either of them. Actually, I'm going a more safer
I'm not saying
route.
I would, but I'm saying they're definitely.
I'm leaving that for the others to decide what they want to do with them. I've got another route that I prefer to examine, and all will be revealed when we release my top 12 list of players we're going after and targeting this year for a number of reasons.
Yeah, from their ADP ones.
And so I'm going a slightly different route with certain tactics implied because I am taking some risks at that round, so it's going to be interesting. Round 3 is the round which I can easily say now, which would be fascinating for Saturday, I think, is a round where I'm taking a player that I believe gives me the value for that round. I'm not going with the ADPs. The ADPs don't matter to me. I'm more interested in do I think that player can do it, and for logical reasons. Exactly like these debates we're having, but I believe in him so much that will happen, or I believe in somebody else will do something. I'm not afraid to have a look at that round and see who's there. I've got targetable players in every round, but not just one. There's several, like you do. You'll have one that you think is the primary one, a secondary, a third, a fourth, but you try to line them up. So I'd rather forget some of the ADPs here and think about players that will definitely give me the job done.
See, I see drafting as like a game, like a puzzle, really.
It is, it's like a chess game.
It is a game of chess. You've got to see who's in front of you and what sort of players they've taken.
You've got to be
what
thinking
they're likely to be taking.
5 moves ahead. So 5 moves ahead.
If you pick it at the end, who might come back to me on the...
Absolutely.
And
when you're talking to moves ahead, because it's a really good analogy, chess, is the fact that moves ahead is what they're going to actually do. And that's actually been the strength of this podcast, is actually predicting what will happen. So when I say to you, I'm moving Marshawn Lynch onto my red list, as in I'm not drafting, it's because I don't think he can give me the value. I'm not saying he can't give me some value. It's just he doesn't give me the value I want for the round.
Or he's too risky.
It's just too risky. So I much prefer to get... Because I want my team... What you want is the dream of any fantasy enthusiast. This is the thing. You want your team to have that kind of year when you look back, you think, oh, what a great run I got. Even if you don't make it.
So they perform to the...
Yeah.
To the ability that you've drafted them at. And then you've got your picks that are later on with a high upside that can
blow out, and then maybe become,
whether it be a rookie running back that takes a job, or
maybe a veteran who slipped for certain reasons that people have sort of given up on them when they actually come good. So exactly. So Lynch is going to be another polarising thing when it comes to our draft on Saturday. I have no doubt there'll be those that are really high on him. There'll be those like me who are not so high on him. But if he fell in the draft, he fell near the end of the third, early fourth, you'd have to give him consideration because the value is so good there.
Don't get me wrong, when someone picks Marshawn Lynch, I'll be I'll be talking about like anybody else.
So it's fascinating.
Unless it's me.
That's the fascinating thing. I just think personally, I think he lost a step, and I'll be interested.
Yeah, but he's not known. He's not a speedster, is he? He's beast mode. He just smashes people out of the way.
It's very difficult to take that length of time out of the game, come back the same. It's very, very difficult. Very, very difficult. I see it the same way that you do if you have an ACL injury.
No, Adrian Peterson's done it.
Well, he's a different. He's a freak. The odds are.
Is he?
Well, he is a freak. The odds are like when you have a prolonged absence from the game. How many players have had that length of absence and come back and been relevant? I mean, we could talk about this all day.
Peterson's the one that came to mind. As you could argue that he had, but
he had an injury rather than just left the game. I mean, I think every time you have anything, whether you have an injury or
Marshawn Lynch had an injury, abdominal strains. I've had one. It took a year.
It's painful. There's no doubt.
I remember Man City had a guy, a young guy coming through. He was hottest ticket. I think his name was Johnson.
Right.
And he had an abdominal strain. It took him a year and a half and he never really came back. No.
I'm concerned over a couple of aspects of Marshawn Lynch. Until he proves them right, then I couldn't buy into him.
I'd rather he took a year out though than play on with his injury and make it worse.
Agreed. Yeah, no doubt.
It does affect you because
he's obviously missed the game. You can see that in practices. He's really up for it. He's ready to go. He's desperate to get back on the field.
You remember?
He's exciting. He's a great player on your team. I tell you what, I like running backs. I've said this before. I like running backs that are bulldozers. He's a bulldozer. I like running backs that bruise the opposition.
He also feeds off the crowd.
Yeah, well, also it makes you feel good. I mean, as a fantasy enthusiast, when you've got a player like him giving it, a rumble for 25 yards off a dead play, it does pump you up. I mean, no doubt. I mean, he's exciting to watch. And when you have players like that on your fantasy team, assuming that he's back to what he was doing before, does frighten the opposition, which is always nice.
Well, what we should be asking people, old or new, Mixon or Lynch.
Interesting, yeah, definitely.
The thing is, both are going to be. I think Lynch will really feed off. Imagine that crowd's going to be going mad for him.
Oh, they'll love him there. They'll love him there.
But equally, you could say about Mixon. Generally he'll plods for like 3 yards. They're going to be shouting for Mixon.
Well, it's the coach's job. I highlight in the article for Mixon's situation is obviously the pass blocking is the key to his future. But the coach's job is on the line. So no matter what we think about the pass blocking, he may have to roll the dice on Mixon and say, get out there and.
But I have him penned down for he does things his way. He won't change. I think he's a guy that he's never that big on rookies, and he doesn't bow to pressure.
I appreciate that. But
he said he wants to bring him on slowly.
That's up to him, but this is your final year. His track record is pretty weak. I highlight in the article it's very, very weak. He's actually had 7 playoff games and no wins. This is a defining year for this coach. He's barely got a winning record, so you have to ask questions at this point, and rightly, they need a playoff win. If he gets a playoff win this year, no matter how they do it, he'll be fine. But I think he'll be rolling the dice because I think Cincinnati are going to need Mixon a lot quicker than most people think.
You've got to say Steelers are hot favourites for that division, haven't you?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
So you're going to be qualifying probably wild card at best unless something happens to
So that tells you how hard it will be to get a winning record. I mean, thinking about it logically, it's going to be tough.
I see him...
Tough division. That's a tough division.
I see him regressing a little bit. They've got lots of young players, so they could bounce back in.
That's why I say, if you think about it logically, just thinking chess moves ahead, will the coach be facing pressure early doors? You bet they will, particularly if they're sitting there at 2-2 or 3-3. Absolutely.
Get the rookies in.
They'll be shouting for him to get in, particularly if he's held him back.
But it took lots of injuries for him to put Boyd in.
He'll have no option this time round because the pressure will mount on the job and he'll have to roll it. Why did you pick him?
I think he's a guy that doesn't care. That's my point.
Well, why pick him then? Why bring the heat?
He's picking him for the future. You don't have to.
He might not be there. The future might not be there for you.
He wants to bring him on slowly.
Well, we'll see what happens. I think he's going to have to roll the dice a lot quicker, and I think training camp could quickly lead to that. So we'll see what happens.
Okay.
Mixon, pre-season games will be critical, and Mixon will hopefully be rotated into those lineups a lot. And if he blasts out there and blows off some big plays, they'll be screaming for him, and that's what I hope will happen.
Well, I can see Hill
still plodding along. Yeah.
I can see Bernard taking third down work. So
there's no doubt there are risks in
if
both
he gets
players.
in, as he
fascinating.
He's certainly
the Mixon Lynch battle will rumble on.
Well,
we've been talking about Mixon a lot this show, haven't we?
It's
polarising.
Like you say, you have to talk about it. I mean, me and you agree on a lot of players. And I do agree with you, Mixon for talent, but maybe not for this year.
That's fair. I mean,
and it is risk.
You know how realistic I've got him penned down for, what stats I've got Mixon down for. And the thing that I'm thinking is that those stats come later in the season. They come as he takes over the job.
Yeah, well, I can see that, but then you're picking him so early.
But I'm not taking him in that round.
Yeah, you can't afford to wait.
I've got no option in these large money leagues with a shark circle if you make the slightest mistake.
If you're in an 8-team league, yeah.
You make a slight mistake and leave any blood in the water, you're dead. So, we know how that works.
The sharks are circling.
Yeah, never let them have a taste of blood. Just move on and get better players.
Right, we're on to cut, trade, keep. I'm going to give you an interesting one. 3 running backs, all in the top 22 picks.
Oh, good.
20, 21 and 22 off the board, these are.
Nice, yep.
Ingram.
Yep.
You a fan of his?
No.
CJ Anderson. You a fan of his?
I am at the moment.
Eddie Lacy.
Not a fan.
Cut, trade, keep.
I'm keeping. Well, this is incredibly simple.
People are going to face this sort of decision in drafts.
Yeah,
do you fade all 3 or do you?
No. Funny enough, CJ Anderson. As much as I make a joke with you about him, I mean, the reality looks as if he's going to end up being the 3-down back again.
Wow.
And there are issues with health. But other than that,
and the O-line,
and the O-line, yeah, that's other than that. Other than the O-line,
the O-line and his health.
Out of the 3 you've offered, I'd take him and roll the dice. Not that I want to. He's not a player, as I said to you just a few moments ago. He's not somebody that around him there are other players I would pick.
Have you noticed that every time he gets tackled, he's like a turtle on his back? He can't get off. He's like rolling about.
He's a post turtle.
When you own him, you notice these things. It's like you always think he's injured because he can't get up. He's just rolling about, and people have to pick him up.
Out of the 3 you've given, I would keep CJ Anderson because he will be. You can use him. Let's put it that way. Fantasy, you can use him. I'm dropping Ingram to the ground, and I'll trade on Eddie Lacy's name. That's how I would treat them.
Okay.
And I think
Ingram goes the highest of the lot.
I know. I'm trucking him.
You
to
think
the
you'd
ground.
get more for Lacy in a trade than you would Ingram?
Peterson's the man. Peterson takes over the
Really?
job. Yeah, I do. Yeah. I think Ingram has some work.
They do. I mean,
it's Peterson.
Peyton must hate Ingram because he does the way he picks people. He's talking at Kamara, he's talking at Peterson.
Well, I mean, look how bad it looks for him.
He plays
high
tower.
I mean, just look how bad it looks for him. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? You're now talking about the rookie being the next Marshall Faulk. What does that make you? Just a fork and knife.
One of the best running back of all time in, and then you're playing Hightower, giving reps, first team reps ahead of him last year.
It says it all, to be honest. So that's what I would do. A trade on Eddie Lacy's name. I'm not a big fan of Eddie Lacy in Seattle. Just don't like
but
it.
Ingram still, despite all those worries last year, still got a lot of points. 200, I think.
Oh yeah, no, it was his best year. There's no doubt it was his best year.
Weirdly, it was his best year.
It was his best year, but he didn't have Adrian Peterson in town, so that immediately almost kills the value in half. So I'm kind of swerving. I just won't touch him.
Yeah,
let other people take that risk. Who wants to compete against Adrian Peterson? Probably one of the greatest players.
I'd like to. I wouldn't compete against him, but I'd like to have a go.
You'd have a go. It'd be a blindside hit, wouldn't it, on Adrian Peterson from behind kneecap? That's what you do.
I've heard he's got a temper. I think I could win the job that way.
Then
go down like
rile him up,
feign injury like a footballer, and go down.
Adrian Peterson, if you want to fly over, I'll pay for it. You can have a chat with Al.
Everyone's having a whip round. Okay, your next one, your wide receivers.
Yeah.
These are Calvin Benjamin. 33.
God, you're picking some ones out of the locker here.
Well, these are, I'm not giving you
big,
easy ones.
These are big decision-making process.
Deshaun Jackson at 34.
Yeah.
And Pierre Garçon at 36.
I'm keeping Pierre Garçon. I've got more hope in him this year.
You're keeping the lowest pick of the lot.
I'm keeping Pierre Garçon because I believe in him for this year. What was the second one, sorry?
Deshaun Jackson. I'm
going to drop him and I'm going to trade on Calvin Benjamin's name.
What would you be hoping for Calvin Benjamin?
Anything. I'll take anything for that. Anything
you can get.
Anything I could get. If I could get something close to the ADP I've picked him at, I'd take it because you'd be laughing. I'd even take a round lower.
I mean, you could have. if you traded Benjamin after 2 weeks last year, I know a few people did. You would have been laughing.
I did suggest it.
Yeah,
didn't we? We suggested it. We said it on the podcast. Trade him. Get rid of him. Trade him now while his going's good. People probably thought we were crazy, but it panned out to be right. No, I can't trust him, so trade on the name and see what happens. So
what would you make of the, because I think, Cam, he has had good years of throwing a lot of yards, 4,000 yards. I think He had a good rookie season, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
And a couple of years back, he was obviously number one overall in fantasy.
Everything went well. It was the perfect year for them, wasn't it? Good schedule, everything fitted right.
So what do you make of their, he's going to get points from McCaffrey, I guess, just little screens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that, he's not going to what happened last year isn't going to happen again. I mean, he's going to be a million miles better off than that.
But you got Benjamin, you got Funchess, you got Curtis Samuel, who could have taken Ted Ginn probably.
I do worry about the pieces around him. I worry a lot about the line, the protection schemes. I mean, there's a lot to worry about. I mean,
Do you like any of them wide receivers?
No, I'm not a big fan of any of them. I mean, I just think this is one of those situations where you look at the Panthers and you kind of think there's some pieces that are great, but it needs more work. It's a team on the build, really. So for me, I'm not expecting miracles.
I suppose you've got Greg Olsen, he's pretty steady.
But he's in the twilight of his kind of career, isn't he? I mean, he can't, he might have another year or two, but I mean, that's stretching it at best. You've got McCaffrey's your piece you're going to build around with Cam. They need some real serious work on those wide receivers because none of them I totally trust. I do get the argument. Somebody said quite rightly, what about Funchess for this year? I mean, where Funchess is going, it's no problem taking him.
If you want to have
you can take a punt at him, no problem. I wouldn't blame anybody for doing that because, quite frankly, the rest of them, there's not a lot to beat out. You never know.
We haven't really seen a lot from him yet, have we?
No, so there's nothing to worry about if you want to roll the dice on him. But again, it's that classic story. I keep saying it all the time. Where Funchess is going, there are other players around him I would take a shot on. So this is the usual problem I find. Unless he was going so low down, it's impossible to pass up the talent.
Yeah, I guess it's personal preference. You have to take your own shots.
Absolutely, but he's all right. I mean, where he's going, it's low enough down the ADP charts to sort of say, okay, I'll take a punt, and I don't mind that. But there's nothing there that interests me in terms of what they're doing.
From what you've seen so far?
No, not really. I worry about that team. I mean, if anything,
I mean, Funchess is wide receiver 73, 203rd off the board. So in a deep league, maybe.
Well, let's look at this logically. Let's play the chess moves through, okay? You're a defensive coordinator looking at their team and their likely starters.
Well, let me give you people around him.
Are you fearful of their starting wide receivers? If you're a defensive coordinator, does that frighten you in any way?
No, not particularly.
So what you'd be saying to your defensive coordinators is the best player they've got from a wide receiver standpoint, in theory, is Kelvin Benjamin.
I think the person I'd probably fear most is McCaffrey.
Yeah, but let me just explain what I would do. So the first thing I'd do is, as the game starts, week one, your big man, the guy who you count as your sort of equaliser, you have him in football as well, someone who you man mark a player out in normal soccer. In American football, put a few hits on him. Let's start the game off. Make sure when there's a nice ball, if the ball comes, big hit.
Yeah.
Because you highlighted it brilliantly, he's a guy that can kind of fade out of the game.
This does my know.
So I think he will fade out of the game when he thinks he's got someone on him who's going to give him.
He was almost looking behind.
So then what does that leave you with? The running game. What part of the running game scares you? Is it Stewart? Not really. A goal line, yes, we know he's very good at that. So McCaffrey, that means you can focus on him. I could probably have two spies. I'd put two spies on him. I'd see whichever way he rolls, you make sure you cover the back door, which is what they do in the NFL now, so they don't let anybody do what Barry Sanders used to do, which is cut back to the back door. You have a spy out there in the back door, and you make sure you have a man that runs with him. That way, even if he does turn the ball back, much more difficult to make the yards. This is problematic for them because once you don't respect a certain aspect of the game, it's much easier to actually manage it. So I think it's not like I'm sitting there going, oh God, look at McCaffrey, they can use him here, there. There's nothing you can do about that. You're going to just have to take your chances when they come. I don't see it. So that's why I see there being a big problem. If you just look at the team, look at the pieces, you've got to worry about that squad.
What it needs probably is Cam to start running again.
It does, yeah. And you've got to hope.
Because they'd have to spy Cam as well.
That's where you've got to hope that the improvement comes from. But the thing is, you don't want, and he's not very good at this,
but they don't want him to take too many hits.
Don't want him to take those kind of hits. I mean, he's not the best quarterback for sliding. He's pretty weak at it, actually.
Well, he never slides. He
doesn't get down quick enough for me, and he doesn't seem to see the problem before it happens. Like he'll stay on his feet that extra second. He takes a hit for it. Sure, he bounces back up, gives it his Superman. But we all know what happens. He took too many of those hits last year. You don't want that again this year. So I hope that he isn't running that much because that would really worry me that their team is just not functioning. So we'll see how it pans out for them. But I've got big concerns about that team.
Okay,
in
interesting
rebuild
stuff.
mode.
Okay, well, that's all we've got time for this week.
Wow,
So,
it's gone quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. Please smash the like button if you have.
We love
or leave
hearing-
a review on iTunes.
Absolutely, we love hearing your comments, your views. We love your subscriptions, and of course, more importantly than anything else, please share these videos. And the other thing, of course, is next week we'll have some information to talk about a big money live leak, the results. We won't go too much into what we think of people's teams, that's not right, but what we will definitely do is talk about our own teams. I think that would be good to say what we like,
and talk about
some of our strategies, our thoughts,
where players went,
which would be interesting, what we think. So that would be really good to see, and it would be great for you to see that as well.
If you want to look at the articles, take a visit to thefanpub.com. There's a lot going on. And again, thanks for listening.
Take care.